are the Celtics the team to beat in the East now with this new addition?
I'm going to couch this by saying I want to see what's going to happen when it comes to Chris Middleton and Brook Lopez. But my belief is those guys are going to be back. And if that's going to be the case, then I think the Milwaukee Bucks are still the team to beat in the Eastern Conference. To bring some memory to everybody's memory, they did win 58 games last year.
Yeah.
They had the best record in the NBA by 5 games. Denver Nuggets won the NBA championship with 53 wins. But Milwaukee, they were running white hot throughout the whole regular season. And we could be having a different conversation about this if Giannis Antetokounmpo does not get injured. And they still believe they had enough to beat the Miami Heat, even though they lost in 5, but they had double-digit leads in 2 of those games in the fourth quarter. And I know what Kristaps Porzingis is going to bring to the Boston Celtics. I can't wait to see how it's going to work with him and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. That's going to completely work. But those 2 guys coming back with Giannis, a new head coach, although I don't think they should have fired Coach Bud, but that's me. That's what I'm saying about that. But this team is deep. They got depth on the bench with Bobby Portis and Grayson Allen, Pat Connaughton. They have what I like to call Noah's Ark kind of team. They have 2 of everything, whatever you need, 2 scorers, 2 point guards, 2 defenders, whatever that is. So as much as people are making moves in the Eastern Conference, I'm couching this by saying if Brook Lopez and Chris Middleton come back, even with a new head coach, for my money, Nick and Wendy and Victoria, that's still the team to beat in the Eastern Conference because that's the team that last year won 58 games or an injury away from maybe getting back to the NBA Finals for the second time in 3 years.
Right, you, Nick.
Give me Milwaukee. I am with Mr. Coleman.
All right.
I think everybody has quickly forgotten just how dominant Giannis and that group can be when they're healthy. And Victoria, I think Adrian Griffin gives this team a reset.
Okay.
Whatever you thought about Mike Budenholzer, it felt like the time had come. And when you get knocked out in the first round by a hungry Miami team for a team that's built to win a title, it's over. So you bring in a new coach, you get everybody back on the same page. I think Middleton will be back. He gets a summer to get himself healthy. We'll see on Lopez. But that team is so loaded. The Celtics can be that team. But are you trusting that Porzingis is, 1, going to stay healthy, and 2, is he going to be the guy you need him to be in the postseason? This is a guy that does not have a lot of experience in big games. The Bucks have been there. They've won. The Celtics have not been able to get over the hump. If Porzingis can be that guy, okay. But let's see what happens with the rest of this Bucks roster, and let's see how refreshed they are with so many people writing them off.
Well, Victoria, there's some business to be done here. The Celtics were looking to trade Malcolm Brogdon last week, and it didn't go through, and they ended up doing the Marcus Smart move to get Porzingis. Is there a Brogdon move still to come? That's number 1. Number 2, Porzingis is on the last year of his contract. They did not trade Marcus Smart for him to play him for 1 year. They got to do a contract extension here. What is that contract extension going to be for a team that is already deeper into the tax than they've ever been in team history? Number 3, they got Jaylen Brown. They got to get Jaylen Brown signed to a contract extension, because if he doesn't, and I do think they will, if he doesn't, now you got to worry about that situation. Okay, that's on the Celtics side. So they're not. Oh, I didn't even mention Grant Williams, restricted free agent at 6 o'clock today, a key member of their rotation. All right, now let's look at the Bucks. I think Chris Middleton, the league believes Chris Middleton is going to go back there. He opted out of his contract, which, as we know, opting out means you're going to probably stay. And opting in means you're probably going to leave.
Which is it sounds so funny.
I know. Draymond Green opted out.
Yep.
We'll probably see him back. Okay. So Chris Middleton, I think, will be back on a long-term contract that lowers his salary, what he was going to get this year, down. Lopez is a bit more of a mystery. And Lopez was a guy who a lot of people thought was going to end up in Houston, or at least Houston was going to make a serious run for him. Houston seems to be prioritizing Fred VanVleet. And if they get Fred VanVleet done, Lopez is probably not going to have a market there. The other thing that happened, Nikola Vucevic, center, former All-Star from the Chicago Bulls, signed a deal yesterday, 3 years, $60 million, all guaranteed, $20 million a year. Brook Lopez is performing at a very high level. That kind of sets the market for him.
Yep.
The Bucks are in the repeater tax. They are facing the deepest, stiffest penalties. They're probably going to lose Joe Ingles, their key guy off the bench. They may lose Jay Crowder, a guy they traded for last year, because of the cost of that. So let's just see where we get by 3 to 5 days from now, and see what the Celtics have done, and see what the Bucks have done, and evaluate. And frankly, the Sixers are a mystery here.
Yes.
And the Knicks, a team that made the second round last year, they're sniffing around Harden. So I think the Eastern Conference, I don't think we're going to see a massive change, but there's some fluidity there. with some stuff that could happen here in this free agency period.
I got a question for you real quick, Brian, based on what you just said. How much of the Celtics going after Kristaps Porzingis is kind of a protection based on what could happen with Jaylen Brown? Because you mentioned it out there in terms of signing the contract, you believe they're going to sign him. But if that really gets gummy and they're not able to do that, how much of bringing in Porzingis could be protection for the Celtics potentially losing Jaylen Brown?
No, I don't think they're going to lose Jaylen Brown. I think the issue was last year Joe Mazzulla had a guard-heavy team, and so he played guard-heavy lineups. And they weren't the same potent team that they were when they went to the finals 2 years ago, where they played big, heavy lineups. And so they're kind of taking it away from him, Joe. We're taking these guards away from you. That's why I want to see what happens with Malcolm Brogdon. Maybe they keep Brogdon. Maybe they trade him, and maybe it's for another non-guard player. So I think they were looking to change the structure of their roster.
Okay.
And they really prioritized Porzingis. Like
they did.
They couldn't get, he had an opt-in into his contract, by the way. Opt-in, it's traded. So that's the thing. So he had an option in his contract that they were racing up against, and they restructured the trade. They really, really like Porzingis, and my expectation is that they're going to make a significant investment there in a contract extension. So, this is the Celtics really believing in this guy, who, by the way, averaged 23 points, 8 rebounds, shot 40% from three. There's a lot to like about him, but it is a guy who has not achieved in the postseason level yet. There's a bit of a risk there.
If Philly moves on from Harden, how should Embiid feel about losing one of the top playmakers in the league?
I think he should be taking a giant sigh of relief right now. I don't think the Sixers moving forward, as much as Harden is still capable of putting up numbers, we're going to win with James Harden as a number 2. I just don't see it. And there have been too many opportunities for him in his career. He's been to 4 conference finals. Really the only one he had a chance to win, they were up 3-2, and in his last 2 games against the Warriors, he was a minus 32. Then you look at what happened this year down the stretch. Massive games, but followed them up with very inconsistent performances. And can we just be frank about something? Has anybody ever heard James Harden talk about how important winning a championship is to him? I can't remember a quote about that. And, Wendy, I'm listening this morning to the Hoop Collective. You're talking about the contract that he could have had if he had stayed in Brooklyn. This consistently feels like the contract with James Harden. I just don't know that winning is that important to him anymore. And I think it has to do with as much money as he can get right now with, frankly, diminished skills.
Well, the thing about it is that he did have a sacrifice.
Was a quote.
Yeah, he did have a sacrifice season this last year by his terms. He took less money, and he did really invest himself in being a facilitator more than he had in the past. And when the day that Embiid won the MVP, he openly said, James was really trying to get me this MVP. But that said, I don't think Philly approaches this way, which they had to know when they approached the negotiations this way, that they were risking turning James Harden off. I don't think they approach it this way if Embiid didn't have an understanding of what they were thinking. So what's really important here is, and not by today, and not by October 15th, by next February, when the teams get their teams set after the trade deadline to know what they're going to have when they go into the playoffs. They have to have a team that is right back to where they were with a chance to win the title. Because I feel like the Sixers, while flawed, had a chance to win the title this year. Because they were in Game 6 at home, up in the fourth quarter. And Carlin, you're right. They let it go down the stretch. That was a terrible loss. Watching the Sixers fans leave that game that night in Philly, where they thought they were going to beat the Celtics, it was a depression. Depression squared, okay?
Yeah.
But they were still right there. And maybe they beat Miami. Maybe they don't, but maybe they beat Miami. And then you got Embiid against Jokic. It's the biggest weapon in the league against them. So they weren't a gulf away from, and I know that you could point out, oh man, they still can't get to the conference finals. That's true. But I don't think this team was like, okay, we got to blow this up. So they are under a modicum of pressure to handle this Harden trade and come out on the other side, whether that's with 1 trade or 2, whether that's in July or whether that's in February. Because the one thing that we're going to now pay attention to as we watch this play out, and maybe it plays out in 3 days, and maybe it plays out in 6 months, the Embiid factor on this is going to be a thing. How does Embiid feel? Are they taking a step forward? Because if we get to 1 year from now, if we get to June 30th, 2024, and the Sixers have taken a step back, we're going to be having a different conversation about Joel Embiid. And trust me, everybody in Philadelphia is aware of that.
What I want to just talk about, a year ago, there was a quote because James Harden had a conversation with Daryl Morey, basically saying about improve the roster, who we needed to sign, about taking that pay cut. And then he said, this is how bad I want to win. I want to compete for a championship. That's all that matters to me. At this stage, I'm willing to take less to put us in a position to accomplish that. Our fearless leader, James Dunn, sent that over to us before the show. This was from Yahoo Sport. July of 2022. Something shifted because clearly that's not the case anymore.
Lots of things shift with James.
Lots of things shift with James Harden. But I just wanted to point that out. That was the one piece that we have
That's
because
fair.
clearly $14 million, he took that. He wanted to win at some point. Things changed.
What I would tell you is that I sat in a press conference room in Sacramento with Mr. Harden, and I said, James, do you still think this team can win a title? This is a year and change ago. And he looks at me and he goes, oh, yeah, we can still do it. And guess who asked for a trade a couple days later? That would be James Harden. So just because you read and you see something does not mean that he's going to follow through.
We tried.
But as far as Embiid goes, that's the key. If Joel Embiid really wanted James Harden on the Sixers, we're not having this conversation today because this thing would get taken care of. Harden would be a priority for a team that still believed in his talent as the number 2 guy. Clearly they don't. And the scary part for Harden is I don't know if the rest of the league does anymore at this point. Again, a very good player, but when you need him and you need him to show up in the big games, he's not there.
No.
The question for Philly is, how does it all impact Embiid over the next few months? And that's what we're going to find out. But it goes to Brian's point, and it's worth hammering home. Just because this happened now, and just because there might be some ramifications in the next few days, next couple of weeks, it doesn't matter. It's all about what happens going into the trade deadline and how this team looks as we get into the postseason. If this team can't get through the big bad wall that is the second round, we are sitting here right now, a year from right now.
Yep.
And everybody's going to go, is Embiid going to stay? Where's he going next? And if they can't get through it this time, why should he have confidence that Morey and the rest of that front office can make the moves that they need to fix what's going on?
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.